Thank you, Isha. I just want to say right now, if any of you guys have not seen in chat this replay from Surfers Paradise, oh my gosh, go watch it. Instant classic.
Crazy.
Super good show. Super good show. 131 points, the difference between Brodie Kostecki and Shane Van Gisbergen as we go into this weekend at Gold Coast. 120 is the maximum one can gain from each, 120 is the maximum one can gain in each race next week. 150 for the win. That being said, last place earns 30. Kostecki pushed Reynolds hard into making a mistake or pushing him wide. Never happened. One of the craziest battles for the win in recent Supercars history. That being said, SVG finished 5th place. Kobe, Joe, if Brodie finishes 6th place in both of these Adelaide races, he wins the championship regardless of how Van Gisbergen does. Is this championship battle still up for grabs, or does Brodie have one hand on the championship?
Well, Jackson, I think when you look at Brodie Kostecki, if he continues to do what he's been doing, I think Brodie can easily go home and take the championship, but it's definitely not over yet. All it takes is one standing start going wrong, one first lap crash, something happened in the race, and then Brodie Kostecki will be in a lot of trouble. But we've seen Brodie rise and meet the moment, have some really good consistent runs. So I think Brodie just really needs to keep doing what he's doing, and he can go home as a Repco Supercars champion, but never count out Shane Van Gisbergen at all, because she can capitalize on any mistake that Brodie Kostecki makes, and at the end of the season, depending on what the final points tally is, Shane Van Gisbergen could very well lose his championship because he was disqualified from the very first race of the season on the streets of Newcastle. That would be really crazy if that's how it turns out.
Yeah, this championship, far from over. I agree with it, Kobe. One of the big things, I've just been very impressed with how Brodie Kostecki seems to always be able to bounce back. After race 25, I mentioned here on the Saturday show that right now, Shane Van Gisbergen, he could potentially reduce that deficit to under 100 points, which will be very key. Brodie Kostecki came back, pole, ran a great race, really in contention for the win just about all race long. One of the greatest races I think we've seen in Surfers Paradise in quite some time. And one of the big things I feel, Brodie Kostecki, that team, they have the confidence that they could race with Triple Eight. They could bring the fight to them. And there's only 2 more races left to do it. I think overall, Brodie Kostecki and that entire Embers team has to feel like they are the favorites.
Almost a universal agreement here that this championship fight is not over. Something that has sparked some controversy, though, is these closing laps. We had a move from our leader, David Reynolds, missed the chicane that made up turns 1 and 2 of the track. Some say it extended his lead. That being said, Kostecki was back on his bumper quickly and basically was with him all the way to the end of the race. Some thought it was an advantage. Some wondered if it would be a lasting advantage. Joe, do we think this was something that Reynolds benefited from, or something that race control should have punished him for?
I honestly think when it came to this, I felt race control probably should have looked at it a little bit more, because one of the big things, it seemed like Reynolds was not entering that chicane that great, and I thought he was going to have to try to really hard defend Brodie Kostecki leading to that first corner. Because that was one of the things I was thinking was, okay, Brodie Kostecki, he's going to be right there. And we just saw David Reynolds. It seems like as soon as he knew I'm a little bit of trouble, I'm just going to duck into the escape route. And as long as, it looks like I didn't get a lasting advantage, I was not going to get much in trouble. So overall, I felt like I don't blame the team for saying, hey, there should have been something called on David Reynolds doing that. As you mentioned, Jackson, though, we did see essentially the battle between the two heat up, but I think that was a big missed opportunity for Brodie Kostecki to try to get him entering that corner.
Yeah, for sure. And kudos to Brodie for putting the pressure there and forcing David Reynolds to make a mistake there. To be honest, when I saw this move, I was thinking, oh my goodness, they're gonna have to make a call on this, and then they're gonna upset a lot of people, because it was such a great race. Actually, you saw 2 great races this weekend on the Gold Coast. That was a great battle between Reynolds and Kostecki there at the end. Honestly, I have a feeling if that would have happened maybe earlier in the race, we probably would have seen a penalty, but I have a feeling Supercars race control didn't want to, make a controversy even bigger by overturning David Reynolds' win and giving it to Brodie Kostecki there. And Adam Limmery says that Surface Paradise always provides excitement in the Repco Supercars Championship. By the way, what are your thoughts on Bathurst opening the 2024 season? Well, I'm sure anytime you get to a race at Mount Panorama is really exciting, but whenever you're doing, an event that's not the Bathurst 1000, the Bathurst 12 hours, something like that, it doesn't have the same feel to it as running the 1000 kilometer event versus, the races in the sprint format. So I'm actually not really a fan of having a second Bathurst race weekend, but I guess they need to look for a track to fill a spot on the calendar with the cancellation of Newcastle.
It's pulling something from the NASCAR book, right? Because you want to open on a big, very important track. And, for NASCAR, we start with Daytona and then we go back in the summer and have a race. And I'm happy that we're not opening with 1,000 because I think it should always kind of be in that same time of year. But I think it totally changes how we approach that race, and seeing a sprint race there, I think is going to be something really, really exciting. Yeah, Joe, what do you think?
I mean, it's very similar to a NASCAR move where it feels like, okay, we know there's a discussion in NASCAR about, 2 tracks a season. And I think when it comes to the Supercar series, they're looking at this. I'll also say similar to IndyCar as well, too, with the Indianapolis road course being twice. I think it's a big thing for the Supercar series to try to have the number of races. But still, I just feel like it's exciting. Don't get me wrong. We're going to Bathurst. Great way to open the season. It's not exactly the Bathurst 1000. It's the sprint race. We'll see how it goes. We do know this is sort of something to fill in the schedule. So I say if it works, okay, that's great. But hopefully we can have Newcastle back because that's a beautiful street course and
yeah,
a lot of great racing over there.
Last talking point here, gentlemen, and we got to talk about this because we had a very, very scary moment during the dash to the finish. James Goldberg, guy who could have been in contention for the podium, spun and stopped outside of the turns 1 and 2 chicane. Tried to get back into the race maybe a little bit too early, grabbed a gear, spun the car around right into Scott Pye, who was completely blind to what was going on until literally like half a second of colliding with him. Pye managed to somehow, some way get out of the way, but unfortunately did clip the wall. That was the day done for him. The big one, no penalty for Goldberg, and Pye said, or Golding, excuse me, and Pye said, one of the dumbest race drivers I've come across, according to Speed Cafe. Guys, considering no penalty, does Supercars maybe look back and evaluate some improvements in case of something like this happening again?
Well, number one, I have no idea how Scott Pye didn't absolutely destroy James Golden there, because that was like a split-second decision for him to veer off and miss it. That would have been a very nasty shunt. Really glad we didn't see that. And number two, I still have no idea what James Golden was thinking there. I'm still relatively new to Supercars, so I'm not sure if they have spotters there, but James Golden certainly needed to have a spotter, someone on the radio there, be like, just sit there, just hold the brake and just sit there. With cars that were coming, there was just no reason for him to, spin around that fast, because that was a complete danger. I mean, it's a danger anyway, just having a car, just sitting in a track like that, but he made it much worse by just spinning around when cars were coming around that blind corner. So I think it was a very lucky escape there. And I was actually surprised there was not a penalty on James Golden there. I think Supercars missed a mark there, and he should have actually been penalized, because that was a dangerous race move. And I really do feel like they should go back to the drawing board and evaluate some improvements they can make here.
Yeah, I feel there should have been some sort of penalty there, and I was starting to wonder, okay, did they not throw a penalty? Because maybe this is something the officials felt like maybe we could do better. Because I felt as soon as that car had spun and came to a stop, they should have right away started, okay, slowing the field down or something, because this isn't a track like Bathurst where you got grass to try to flick around. If your rear tires get a little bit in the grass, you can still keep going. There's a concrete wall, so you only had one way to go, and you got cars coming. I felt they should have been a lot more faster when it came to throwing that yellow. But this is something I think maybe Supercars will look at, okay, something we can improve on going forward. Overall, though, should it have been a penalty? I would say yeah, because we do not want another driver to try to do something like that. Because like you said, Kobe, that was something I just was bracing for that impact when I saw what was coming, and amazed that Scott was able to avoid it. But that ruined his race completely into the concrete wall. Car would just not go, change the entire finish of the race. So
Simple thing is the fact that Golding basically ruined Scott Pye's race is he's lucky that's the worst damage done to that, because things could have been so much worse. But I mean, the fact is that's Scott Pye's day done, and there should be a penalty for that. But let's hope that there's changes for that next weekend in Adelaide, when we're hopefully going to see a very, very epic battle for the championship.